Hey
everyone.
welcome back to So True Pod. It's been like a minute since we've recorded. I'm feeling a little like out of sorts.
Me too. I'm feeling awkward because the last one we recorded was probably in like
I think it was
May.
like literally May or June, and it's like September now.
The thing is, guys, we wanted to have a stockpile of episodes for you all.
Yes.
And
everything that you have heard up to this point has all been batch recorded for like a couple of months. So you might hear references to like Memorial Day back in May. And you'll be like, hold on, I'm hearing this in September. What happened to the girls?
Yeah.
To the girls, the gals. Nothing happened. We're just lazy pieces of crap.
There's a couple of things you need when you start a podcast, like a cover, like an intro and outro song.
Yeah.
And if I'm being perfectly honest, we still don't have an intro or an outro song when we're recording this.
At this point, I mean, we'll have one when you're hearing this, but at this point, we're contemplating just crafting one on GarageBand.
Yeah, because literally, why do I have to pay like $10 to $15 a month to use a song? Why can't I just buy a license?
Yeah,
okay?
Here's the thing: is like you can find tracks that you can use for like your podcasts, YouTube videos with like royalty free, but it's all a subscription service. So you have to pay a monthly payment, but you're like, what if I just want one song, one license for one song? You can't find that shiz anywhere.
No.
Like anywhere. So anyway, we should
DIY.
We're just going to DIY it.
Yeah.
We're going to pull an Ant and Seb and just like record it ourselves. If you know that reference, that American Idol reference, we can be friends. If you don't, just go look it up on YouTube. Yeah, so we're here. We're doing it. Okay. I am
Should
blinking.
we just get right into it?
Yes. So this week we are doing, honestly, I feel like this one we're probably going to be releasing like first week of October is kind of what I'm guessing in my mind.
Yeah, maybe.
Because we're kicking off spooky season with mysterious disappearances.
Hunger Games.
Yes.
Theme song.
Exactly. Didn't she say the Hunger Games was playing at the gym today?
It was playing at the gym, and that's so funny because I watched it 2 days ago because I was like, I feel like I'm in the mood to watch Hunger Games.
It's been a minute for me too.
And I like kind of forgot how good it was.
It really is good.
I feel like it's the best dystopian movie out of all the like young adult teenage dystopian movies. Like,
man, when those Hunger Game books were out, I freaking binged those so fast. And then I remember when I had to wait for Mockingjay to come out.
That's so crazy.
And Mockingjay sucked trash. No offense, Suzanne Collins, but it felt like she gave up. And Mockingjay was like the worst.
I think, I mean, I don't really remember the book because I don't even know if I finished reading it because I was just so heartbroken about PETA. But in the movie, I actually liked how I feel like the movie handled it better.
I agree, but I still was not pleased.
I remember when like the casting had been announced and everyone was reacting to like Josh Hutcherson playing PETA, and they're like, oh, I don't think he's right. But when I went back and watched it, I was like, he's kind of
perfect.
He's kind of the only one who could play him. Like, he has the perfect sweetness about PETA, like, and he's so likable.
The only thing about him is that he is short. That's the only thing, is Josh Hutcherson is a short king, and PETA is supposed to be like very big, like, and tall. And Jennifer Lawrence isn't like short. She's like 5'7". So I think they're like the same height. Yeah. So like that, I think that's the only thing about Josh Hutcherson that like maybe was like a little off, but everything else I felt like he was an amazing PETA.
Yeah, I feel like he was so good.
And I've always kind of had a crush, like from the time I was a kid, like had a crush on Josh Hutcherson. Like I always kind of thought he was cute, like Bridge to Terabithia.
Oh my gosh.
Zathura, like loved that kid. I was like, oh my gosh.
Is it Little Manhattan?
Little Manhattan.
I watched that 500 times.
I forgot about Little Manhattan.
That was a throwback.
I loved that movie though.
Little Manhattan girls pull up.
Little Manhattan, if you know, you know.
But yeah, it's like, because no one was really Team Gale. Everyone just liked Liam Hemsworth. But you can't be Team Gale because the right answer is PETA.
I was gonna ask you, I'm like, you're Team PETA, right?
Obviously, like I'm probably physically more attracted to Hemsworth because he has dark hair, and we all know that blondes just don't do it for me.
Yeah, Claire
Peeta,
is dark hair biased.
Dark hair biased. I don't know.
So is our older brother though. Our older brother Paul, like he like can acknowledge, this sounds really bad, but like he can acknowledge like a blonde girl is beautiful, but like he's just naturally like attracted to like brunettes.
Yeah.
Like every girl he's ever dated, brunette. Like all the girls that he like is like I'm interested in, they're always brunette. And he's like, I don't know what it is, but
that is to say, I will choose the nice guy over the bad boy.
That's exactly right.
Anytime.
That's exactly right. Because here's the thing.
That toxic masculinity up in here.
That's right. Here's the thing. I think all of the girls, at least all of us girls who are trying to be like healthy and well-rounded and like emotionally available, like we're all in this day and age, like we're sick of like the brooders. Like we want a golden retriever. We want a man that like bakes
and paints
but also is muscular and can like throw us around a little bit, which is Peeta.
Right.
Like Peeta's strong, but he's also like
he's kind.
He's just kind and good.
And the thing is like there's like a point, I watched a little bit of Mockingjay, just a little bit of it, and Gail was always trying to make Katniss choose, and she's like, I have a war going on, buddy. And then Peeta like didn't Peeta was always just there for her, like no matter what she chose. Like he was always just gonna be like supportive. And
Homeboy literally got brainwashed.
And literally he got hijacked for Katniss. Also, I just love Jennifer Lawrence so much. She was perfect.
Her.
I know she wasn't quite what people pictured either as Katniss, but I thought she was perfect.
I thought she did a great job, but she's an awesome actress.
Yeah, she is.
I love Jennifer Lawrence. She kind of like went quiet there for a little bit, and now I'm
fell off the radar.
Yeah, now I'm seeing more stuff with her, and she's kind of coming back. Like I think she's done a couple movies. Well, just bought my mic. A couple movies recently, and I'm just like, I love her.
Me too.
And anybody who tries to say like anything about her, because I've seen like some slander things about her online, and I'm like, y'all, leave her alone. Leave her alone. She is so funny. She is so cool. I am like just obsessed with her. She is hilarious. Some of my favorite movies have Jennifer Lawrence in them, like Silver Linings Playbook. If you guys have not seen Silver Linings Playbook,
that is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Such a good movie. It's like they're both, so it's her and Bradley Cooper, and they're both like so unhinged in it. Like they both have like severe like mental illness and trauma and stuff, but like they're hilarious.
Yes.
And it's honestly like a comfort movie.
And they're like kind of perfect for each other.
They're perfect for each other. But like it really is one of my comfort movies. I love Silver Linings Playbook.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it like YouTube reel. My friends are gonna come at me because they're like, you'll watch any reels except get TikTok. I'm like no, but anyway, I saw this YouTube reel of her eating like spicy chicken wings on like Hot Ones or something.
I love Hot Ones.
And it was so funny. It was just a little clip.
She's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, she's like, what do you mean? It's so funny. Anyways,
just a delight.
Anyways, Hunger Games was great. Glad I got to revisit that part of my childhood.
Now I want to rewatch it. I'm gonna do that.
I haven't watched the second one. I only watched the first one, and then I watched a couple clips of Mockingjay because I was like, have I ever even finished it? And I don't think I ever finished it.
Yeah,
part 2.
I can't remember any of it.
Yeah,
really.
I don't really remember it, but I want to. The second one's my favorite.
I love
Catching Fire is so good. It's because
Sam Claflin. How do you even say his last name?
I think it's
Claflin.
Claflin.
Okay, but I thought it was Claflin too. But then Mom and I watched Daisy Jones and the Six the other day,
Claflin?
And there's an L after the F, so it's Claflin.
Wow,
Lynn.
I've been
Claflin. I've
saying
Claflin my entire life.
I've said the same. Wow.
But I love him.
He's the best, and Finnick is just.
Oh, he's so sexy. He's so sexy.
I'll say this one more time. It should have been Gale, not Finnick.
Facts.
Like, period.
Facts. Spoilers? Like, who should have been mauled by the mutts? Gale.
Why did...
Gale.
See, the thing is
I will die on that hill.
I get Prim's death. I get so many other deaths. I get Cinna's death. But Finnick, he did not need to die.
That's the thing. She took
did not need to die.
Susan Collins, she took it a little too far with Finnick. And I'll never forget. Like, you have to tastefully kill off characters. It's when like authors start going kamikaze on everybody and just like
pull a Walking Dead and literally murk all the good characters.
Murk everybody you love, and you're like, why do I even give a crap? That's what I hated about Mockingjay, is that like she murked everybody like basically all the characters you really liked, and then Katniss was like so depressed that like she couldn't, like she was just like like not even herself. Peeta's still brainwashed, hijacked like the entire time. He still doesn't have a clue what's going on. Gale is like completely turned into just like a literal robot. Like he's just like, I am army man.
And like he's he like goes too far on the other side of the spectrum. Like he's like a rebellion soldier and he doesn't care about like Capital kids and like shit like that.
Yeah, now they want to start like killing the Capital kids. Crazy. And she's like, hold on.
I do really have more respect for that movie now, because I was like, oh, that's such an interesting thing, where it's like the people that you would think are good can also like sway too far. And like I love when Candace shoots coin instead of President Snow, and you're just like, oh shit. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I could literally this could just be a Hunger Games literally deep like dive. Hunger Games deep dive. We should do that.
We should. Okay, doing
next
it. Next episode. Also, your bangs look really good.
Thanks.
I really like.
I got out of the shower and I was like, well, my hair's just gonna have to be wet, but I'm glad they dry, because I have a cowlick, so usually they dry straight to the side, so then I have like
it kind of splits down the middle.
It splits down to the middle, and then I'm like, oh, I'm a pedophile.
Oh. Please.
Sorry.
Not the pedophile.
Anyway.
All right, we should probably get into this after talking about Hunger Games for 15 minutes.
They're like, is this Mysterious Disappearances, guys? Hello?
You know what? I actually love podcasts like this, though, where they go off the handle for 15 minutes.
Tiny Meat Gang, Cody and Noelle's thing, I always feel like they're just shooting this shit the whole time. I love them, but you know, I'm not going to feel bad about it because they do it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Mysterious Disappearances. Claire, do you want to start?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Claire's going to start us off.
Okay, I have 3 and then Hannah has 2, but if we feel like we need to do, I have one more too.
I also have our So True fact of the day. So.
Oh, okay, sweet.
Okay,
so this one is called The Strange Mystery of James Edward Tedford. And I always feel bad because I'm like, what if people have like heard of these before? But I'm like, I never heard of them. And not everyone like listens to like true crime stuff or so. If you haven't heard it, great.
Cool.
Okay. So it says James E. Tedford was born around 1884 in Vermont. Not much is known about his early life, but by 1940 he was resident in Fletchertown, Franklin, Vermont, with his younger wife Pearl. She was age 28 and he was 56. Not a fan of that age gap, but you know what? It was a different time.
It was a different... Wait, how old was she again?
She was 28 and he was 56.
Okay, at least she was
like
not
almost
like
30.
15.
Right.
Like, I'm like, at least she was a full-grown woman.
Right.
She's just like looking for a sugar daddy. She's like, I'm still in my prime, but like, I know what I'm getting myself into.
True.
Okay, go off.
Things started to get strange following Tedford's return to Vermont, the end of his second spell of military service at the end of World War II. He returned to find his wife Pearl had vanished. No trace of her could be found. The property they rented in Fletchertown had been left abandoned. Tedford's family claimed no knowledge of the whereabouts of his missing wife. They said they had last seen her as she was heading to the Amaco store in Franklin, but they never saw her again. Desperate and lonely, Tedford checked into a soldier's home in Bennington sometime around 1947. On December 1st, 1949, Tedford's remaining family reported him missing. So 2 years after he goes into Bennington or whatever.
Okay.
Police investigations and reports show he boarded a bus in St. Albans a few days earlier, but that he had not arrived at his destination. Tedford was on his way home to the retirement home in Bennington from a trip to see family in St. Albans, Vermont. The scheduled bus trip should have taken the best part of 8 hours, but heavy snow caused a long delay. The route also passed through the Green Mountain National Forest, an area renowned for disappearances and strange events during the 1940s. Tedford was seen sitting on the bus by 14 other passengers. They all testified to seeing him there, sleeping in his seat. When the bus reached its destination, however, Tedford was gone, and the driver and other witnesses all testified that they had not seen the old man leave the bus. Tedford was seen getting on the bus in St. Albans by multiple witnesses, and was still seen on the bus at the last stop before arriving in Bennington. Somewhere between the last stop and Bennington, Tedford had vanished. Strangely, all his belongings were still on the luggage rack, and a local bus timetable lay open on his empty seat. Tedford is just one of a number of mysterious cases of missing people from around the Bennington area in the 30s and 40s. And then that's it.
Interesting.
So all his luggage was still there. people had seen him get on the bus, but no one had seen him get off. And the fact that his wife disappeared a few years earlier
that's
too.
What I'm like, she disappears, which is like, okay, maybe she left him.
Right. Older guy. Maybe she was depressed.
Yeah,
it's during war times.
Like, see you later.
Yeah.
Bye. Also, the name Pearl makes me think of Mr. Krabs' daughter.
I'm just like picturing this whale. A whale with a blonde ponytail.
Blonde ponytail in her pink cheer uniform. She's like, I'm going back to Bikini
so
Bottom.
Funny that we both pictured that.
I'm telling you, SpongeBob is at least 55% of my personality.
Same, actually.
SpongeBob and like Jack
good.
Black. That is
Yeah.
my personality.
It's a good combination.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so weird that she disappeared, but then like, again, like you said, wartime, she's like, I'm still young and hot. I gotta go get my kicks while I still like have them.
Right.
She's like, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Bye, James. But then like the fact that like it's always on a bus too. Like,
Yeah.
why is it like they get off
And-
the bus and they would never see it again?
And if he like just kind of wanted to go off on his own and not have any responsibilities, why didn't he take his stuff?
Why didn't he take his stuff? And also, if he had killed himself, I'm guessing they would have found his body.
Yeah. Or yeah, I don't know. People would have seen him getting off. That's just a weird thing.
Yeah.
But it's weird. I read something though that like, well, I think this wasn't the Green Mountain National Forest. It was like something else. And shit, I should have done my research. But like a lot of people went missing between the 30s and 50s around like national parks. And I almost wonder it's because like they weren't like regulated enough, or like we didn't have much information about. I don't know. They were like relatively a new thing. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe not. I don't know. That's just pulling that shit out.
They
my
get
ass,
lost
but
and like they're never
Yeah,
found. Like,
right.
who knows?
yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Anyways, that article was from coolinterestingstuff.com.
Sweet.
So reliable source.
We love it. I mean, guys, we never said we were like accurate.
Right.
Our podcast is literally called So True. We're not like,
Guys, we don't.
like, don't fact check us. Just believe that it's true. Have
so
faith,
funny.
okay? Thanks.
Have faith in this So True
Have faith in
podcast.
the So True podcast. Maybe just like kind of true. I don't know.
Yeah, that
Parts of it are true.
would be so funny if our name was kind of true.
Kind of
Anyway,
true.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So my first one is The Disappearance of Cherry Mann. I'm pretty sure you pronounce it Man. It might be Mahan, but I'm pretty sure it's Mann. Mahan. All right. So we will start with a background. Okay. So Cherry Ann Mann was born in Saxonburg, Pennsylvania on August 14th, 1976. Her mother, Janice Mann, was just 16 at the time she gave birth to her daughter, which she later confessed had been a result of her being sexually assaulted at age 15. Nonetheless, Janice doted on her daughter, who grew into a friendly, talkative child, later stating, "We were always together. We grew up together. She was my life."
Aww.
Janice later married a Vietnam veteran named Leroy McKinney, who willingly accepted Mann as his stepdaughter. In late 1984, the family relocated to Corn Planter Road in Butler County. Mann attended Winfield Elementary School, where she was regarded as a bright, popular, and happy child. On Friday, February 22nd, 1985, the child was excited as her mother intended to take her on a play date when she returned from school. Mann accompanied her mother to the bus stop located approximately 50 feet from the base of the uphill driveway to their home. So, like, you walk down the driveway and then the bus stop is, like, just down the street. Like,
Okay.
very close. 50 feet. That's, like, not far at all.
Yeah.
When the school bus arrived, the two told each other they loved each other before Mann boarded the bus. So she gets on the bus, goes to school.
And how old was she again?
8.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, really sad. So she goes to school, has a whole school day, gets on the bus after school, and comes home, right? Mann was last seen exiting her school bus on Corn Planter Road on February 22nd, 1985. So again, remember, her bus stop is 50 feet from the base of her driveway. Like an uphill driveway. So like right next to her house. She gets off the bus.
And whoever's in her house would be able to like see her like coming up the driveway or something.
Yeah, probably. She alighted this bus with 3 friends at approximately 4:10 p.m. Before her friends entered a car driven by the mother of one of the girls, Debbie Burke, who had followed the school bus in her own car. Okay, so she's with her two friends. She and her two friends get off the school bus, and one of her friends' moms is waiting there to take her two friends to their house. So they probably lived a little bit farther from the bus stop. Man was then observed to walk past a bluish-green van which had parked near the bus stop and turn a corner to walk the approximately 150-yard uphill driveway to her home. Okay, so the Debbie Burke, the mom of the other girls who had followed the bus in her car to pick up the other two little girls off of the bus, saw Cherry Man walk past a bluish-green van that was parked near the bus stop.
Okay.
She turns the corner to walk like up her driveway to her house. Mm-hmm. The van would later be described as a 1970s era Dodge with a distinctive mural depicting a skier traversing a snow-capped mountain painted on the side. Burke, so the mom that was in the car, was the last individual to see Man.
Oh my goodness.
To see little Cherry. At the time of her disappearance, Man was 8 years old. She was 4 feet 2 inches in height and had brown hair and hazel eyes. Man was wearing a gray coat, a blue denim skirt, a white leotard, blue leg warmers, beige boots, and Cabbage Patch earmuffs. Slay.
Damn, Cherry. That's a slay fit.
I want that outfit. Shoot. Man's stepfather, Leroy McKinney, overheard the school bus slowing to a halt near his home. He later recollected he had intended to walk down the 150-yard driveway to meet his stepdaughter before his wife said, "No, it's a nice day, let her walk." Oh. When 10 minutes had elapsed and Man had not arrived, her mother and stepfather began to worry. A search of their driveway did not locate the child or any of her footprints upon the snow on the ground leading to her house, although they did discover a set of tire impressions in the driveway soil approximately 50 yards from their home.
Her mom probably regrets saying that every single day.
Every single day. So like,
oh my god,
she probably started walking up her driveway, and then whoever was in that van snatched her.
Or yeah, like they had planned to snatch a kid. That's and she just happened to be
the one walking right past. She turns the corner out of sight.
That's so awful.
But like, how crazy! Like you said, they're like you could probably see her from almost from, unless she said it turned the corner, so maybe their house was just on the other side of the corner.
Right.
But like, her dad literally heard the
She's like,
the school
you're
bus.
in your neighborhood. Like
you're in your neighborhood.
Like
the mom of her two little friends literally saw her walk. It was like 5 seconds of her not being observed,
that,
like watched
pocket
over.
Of time that
yes, but like the fact that her dad literally heard the school bus and was like, "Oh, I'm gonna like walk down and meet her, and maybe pick her up and carry her the rest of the way up the driveway." Like, and I was like, "No, it's nice. Like, just let her walk up. Have some alone time. Whatever. Just she's fine."
Like,
and then like 10 minutes goes by and your kid still hasn't come up the driveway, and you're like, oh my gosh, can you imagine? Like,
you just be kicking yourself like, oh, I should have let him go and get her. I should have done that. Yeah, that's
so
terrible.
I'll finish up with kind of the investigation. Police immediately launched an intense search to locate Man. The terrain around her home was extensively searched with the assistance of bloodhounds and helicopters, and investigators conducted house-to-house inquiries. A thorough search of Butler County was bolstered by an estimated 250 local volunteers. Although these searches failed to locate the child, Man's local community raised $39,000 as a reward for Man's safe return.
Wow.
With the local business also pledging an additional $10,000 for information leading to an arrest and conviction of her abductor or abductors. Investigators quickly discounted any possibility Man had been kidnapped for a ransom, concluding the child most likely knew her abductor or abductors, although all family members were quickly eliminated as suspects. Again, the suspect vehicle was the blue and green Dodge van with the skier on the side. When no significant leads developed and the child had been missing for 3 months, a national direct mailing company printed a photograph of Man on postcards accompanied by the question, "Have you seen me?" These cards were mailed to thousands of households across the U.S., placed inside telephone and utility bills, alongside an artist rendition of the distinctive van seen in the vicinity of her abduction. They couldn't happen to find anything. Lots of years went by. Legal declaration. So although existing laws had determined Cherry Man could have been declared legally dead 7 years after her disappearance, Man's mother only petitioned to have her daughter legally declared deceased in 1998. A Butler County judge approved a petition from Janice McKinney to do so in November that year. 3 months earlier, she had donated $50,000 reward sum for information leading to the safe return of her daughter to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Cherry Mann's trust fund was given to her younger brother Robert, who was born 4 years after Mann's disappearance. Addressing the media following the conclusion of these legal proceedings, Janice McKinney stated, "When people die, you have a body. You kiss them upon the face, you put them in the ground, and you say goodbye. That's something I never had. This is not over. We'll always look for Cherry. If nothing else, she'll always be alive in our hearts."
Oh, that's so heartbreaking.
I'm like,
you just never get
teary-eyed. Her poor mom.
You just never get closure. Like, that's just probably the hardest thing. You just have to accept I'm never gonna see them again. They're dead.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like, I just cannot. Yeah. I cannot even imagine that poor family, and her mom still to this day, like, just not even knowing what happened to her little girl. That's rough. So heartbreaking. So I mean, all my thoughts and prayers, and like, I just to the McKinney family and poor little Cherry Mann. It's just really sad.
It's very sad.
And really crazy.
Mine is also an abduction story. And what's funny about this one is, like, the suspect's car also has a decal on it. And I was like, what is with these cars and having weird decals on them? I'm like, I'm avoiding any decal car.
This? Seriously.
I'm like...
Oh, also mine, I found the original story on a BuzzFeed article called Creepy Disappearances, but then it took me to a Wikipedia article that had it all ran out really well. So that's where I got all my information, was Wikipedia, which again, honestly, I think Wikipedia has great information.
Yeah, I don't know why school teachers were like, you can't use
Wikipedia. And I'm like, excuse me, it has like better information than half of these websites.
To use Wikipedia.
Same. And then just cite a different website. Please.
Okay. Mine is on the website uncovered.com, and it is the case of Angela Hammond, and I will start. So going by Angie instead of Angela, Angie Hammond was just beginning some of the most significant milestones in her life. She was a college freshman taking classes at Central Missouri State University and also working as a bank clerk. In November 1990, she began dating Rob Schaffner, the high school senior star athlete who was preparing for a career in the military. By all accounts, the two were absolutely smitten with each other. But January of 1991, Angie shares with Rob that she's pregnant, and Rob couldn't be more excited. Soon after, Rob gets down on one knee and the pair are engaged. 4 months later, on April 4th, Angie and Rob attended a family barbecue hosted at Angie's mother's house. The pair left around 9 p.m., and Angie drove Rob over to his family's house so Rob could babysit his younger brother. Angie spent part of the night driving around town talking with a friend, and after she dropped her friend off at her house, Angie stopped at a payphone in the middle of town to call Rob at 11:15 p.m.
Really quick, why did she stop to call him at a payphone? Why didn't she wait till she got home? That's like what I want to know.
I don't know.
That's kind of interesting to me, like why you would stop. Maybe. I mean, I know like they didn't have cell phones, but like, why wouldn't you just wait till you got home? That's interesting to me.
That is weird.
Sorry, continue.
I don't know.
That just jumped out to me.
I don't know. Wait. While on the phone with Rob, Angie says that she sees a green truck that kept circling the block. I would immediately start running.
Immediately get my car.
The truck eventually pulled into the parking lot and parked right next to Angie and the payphones. The driver got out, and Angie told Rob that the male driver was dirty looking and that he had a full mustache and beard. She also told Rob that the man had glasses on and was wearing overalls. Angie could also make out a decal that covered the back window of the truck, which depicted a scene of a fish jumping out of water. Not long after, Rob hears Angie scream into the phone. Terrified, Rob gets in his car and speeds over to the center of town to the payphone where Angie called from. While on his way there, Rob saw a green truck speeding past him, going the other direction, and he heard a female voice scream "Rob" from inside the truck. Rob instantly spun his car around to chase after the truck, but in completing an intense reverse turnaround, he inadvertently damaged his transmission. Rob could only chase after the truck for 2 miles before a sharp right turn on W. Calvert Drive stalled his car. That's the worst luck.
That
like, come on,
guy. He's just like helpless, like watching his fiance, like
literally get abducted.
His pregnant fiance.
Yeah. It says Angie was never seen again. Police believe Angie was most likely murdered. In the week of Angie's abduction, Rob was cleared of any suspicion by law enforcement, and a few local witnesses came forward saying they saw the green truck lurking around the town in the days leading up to April 4th. The subsequent investigation took detectives in many directions. Some speculate that Angie's abduction is related to 2 other young women who vanished in less than a 100-mile radius in the early months of 1991, Trudy Darby and Cheryl Kenny. In 2021, the police held a press conference and unveiled another theory. The abductor from 1991 took the wrong Angela. But I'm like, how would it be the wrong Angela? She literally yelled Rob. He heard her yell Rob, like, you know?
Yeah.
It was revealed that in the town of Clinton, a man was working undercover for the narcotics team of the police department, and the man's cover was seemingly blown. A ransom note postmarked for the morning of April 4th, 1991, the day Angie was taken, details another family's intentions to abduct their daughter, Angela. Now, police are looking for the public's help to hopefully identify the suspect from 1991. They're also asking for whoever submitted an anonymous tip in early 2021 regarding the ransom note to come forward so the conversation can be furthered. And that's the end. The thing, though, is like, if it was the wrong Angela, this other family's daughter named Angela wouldn't yell Rob, you know?
Well,
and the fact that she was at a payphone and talking to him.
Also, I mean, I guess that other Angela could have known a Rob, but like, I'm also wondering, like, if this guy was like after the other Angela, wouldn't he have known, like, had like a picture of her and known what she looked like? You know, like...
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like
if, like,
maybe
whoever...
the abductor was...
Yeah, the abductor... I feel like the abductor would have known which Angela he was going for. Like, I don't know if
Yeah,
like,
that wouldn't correlate.
I don't think, like, the name so much is, like... I feel like he'd be like... No, like, he would know, like, what the Angela he was going for looked like. So that is kind of an interesting theory to me. But I don't really believe that one.
That one's a little bit...
Doesn't make much sense. What really throws me off again is like why she stopped in like late at night at a payphone to call Rob. Why didn't she just drive all the way home
or drive to meet him there? I don't know.
Drive home and call him.
I don't know. I feel like so many people were just like more trusting back then.
That's like, true. Because I'm like, I would never do that.
I would never stop in the middle of nowhere at night. And as soon as I saw like a man park next to me, or
as soon as I saw that this truck had circled a couple times, I would have gotten in my car and left. I would have been like, I gotta go. This guy's creeping me out.
Even when I'm like jogging past the guy in broad daylight, I cross onto the other side of the street. I'm terrified.
Yeah. But I definitely think it was like a different time.
It was a different time for sure, I think.
People just were not as aware. But oh my gosh,
that is so heartbreaking.
That's so heartbreaking.
I would literally like be so angry at my truck.
Literally,
like, he could have like
he got there and like the fact that he got there in enough time to even see like the truck and be able to follow it.
And
number one,
and then it stalls,
and he's like, "There's nothing he can do." Like
he just watches them drive away.
He just watches them drive away, and that's the last time like she's ever seen.
That's so heartbreaking.
With like pregnant with his child, and like they're about to start like their lives together, and
why do people out there abduct other people?
And you wonder like, what was his motivation? Was he just a creep like who wanted to abduct a woman? Like
I think so.
Like that seems more likely to me than like he had like a whole backstory with like was trying to get another Angela. It's like, no, I think he was just a
I feel like unfortunately that's kind of the case.
Take a woman and kill her, you know?
Right. They don't need a motivation. Sometimes it's just like whoever happens to be there, just like with that little girl.
Yeah.
It's like
like I doubt that little girl was targeted. It was just like they want
she was the
took her wanted a kid. Yeah. Yep. Ugh, so freaking sad. My next one, more people have heard about this one because there was actually a podcast that did a whole thing about her called the Cold Podcast. And this is the disappearance of Susan Powell.
I've never heard of it.
Yep, she's from Utah, so a lot of people like know this one or have heard of this one. But I've heard of it, but I don't even really know all the details of it.
Actually, now that you say she's from Utah, that sounds a little bit familiar. Yes,
I feel like most people have heard of Susan Powell, and again, like a popular there was a whole, like, somebody did like a whole podcast on like her called the Cold Podcast. So, all right. Susan Marie Powell is an American missing person from West Valley City, Utah, whose 2009 disappearance and presumed murder, as well as a subsequent investigation and events, garnered national media attention. Susan's husband, Joshua, was named a person of interest in the investigation into her disappearance, but was never charged. Okay, and then the next part at that beginning kind of gives some things away, so I'm going to go to the background.
Okay,
so Joshua Powell, that's her husband, who's like kind of the person of interest. Joshua Powell was born on January 20th, 1976 to Stephen and Terica Powell in Puyallup.
Putin.
Vladimir Putin. I don't know how to say it. Puyallup. Puyallup.
Yeah.
Washington.
I'm sure I've butchered other names in this.
His parents had a dysfunctional marriage caused in large part by Stephen's violent abuse of his family and by his disaffection with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So his dad was basically like
very religious,
to the point of like being crazy religious, abusive, which you do see a lot in that type of situation, which is very sad. According to divorce filings by Terica, Josh's mom, in 1992, Stephen shared pornography with Joshua and his two brothers and refused to teach or enforce limits on certain behaviors. As a teenager, Joshua allegedly killed gerbils belonging to one of his sisters and threatened his mother with a butcher knife. He also attempted suicide on at least one occasion. So Josh, Susan Powell's husband, grew up in a crazy household with an insanely abusive father who caused trauma and showed him things like pornography from a young age, which we know can affect your mental state. Obviously, is a very troubled child, right?
Great parenting. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. By the late 1990s, Joshua was living in Seattle as a student at the University of Washington. It was here that he began a relationship with a young woman named Catherine Terry Everett, whom he met at a local LDS church congregation. After the two moved into an apartment together, Joshua became possessive towards Everett. She later recalled he refused to allow her to visit her family by herself and added, "He would have restrictions and limitations on what I could and couldn't do when it came to my family." When Everett visited a friend in Utah without Joshua, she decided not to return to Seattle and broke up with him over the phone. Man, I bet she is so glad she did that.
Oh, yeah, for real.
Joshua met Susan Cox, a classmate at his LDS Church Institute of Religion course, during a dinner party at his Tacoma apartment in November 2000. The two began a relationship and married in the Portland, Oregon temple in April 2001. Joshua had a bachelor's degree in business and worked for a number of different companies over the years, while Susan, a trained cosmetologist, took up a job with Wells Fargo Investments after the family's relocation to West Valley City, a suburb of Salt Lake City. The Powells went on to have two sons, Charles, born in 2005, and Braden, born in 2007. For a brief period following their wedding, Joshua and Susan lived at Stephen Powell's home in South Hill, Washington. So they lived with Josh's crazy father. Initially, unbeknownst to Susan, her father-in-law, Stephen, had developed an obsessive infatuation with her.
Of course. I mean, why not?
Why not? Because he's a psychopath. Stephen followed Susan around the house with a camcorder. Ew! Used a small mirror to spy on her while she used a bathroom.
Oh my God.
Stole her underwear from her laundry. Read her journals. And even posted love songs online under a pseudonym.
Yeah, that's when you move the fuck out. Oh my God.
In 2003, Stephen confessed his amorous feelings to a stunned Susan, who rejected him. The encounter inadvertently captured by Stephen's camcorder microphone.
It's literally on camera or on audio?
They literally have the audio.
That is frightening.
I'm dying. The Powells moved out of state soon after, partly so Susan could distance herself from Stephen. She's like, yeah, we gotta go.
Okay, good.
Because your dad's in love with me. Ooh. Susan's journal entries and email correspondence indicated the presence of marital discord. So, of course, we know that Josh also has issues. Probably after hearing this, he's gonna start going a little bit crazy. There's gonna be jealousy because of...
You're like competing with your own father.
Yeah, competing with your own father. Like, obviously, it's gonna get bad. There was tension with Joshua over his refusal to attend church services with his family. and over his continued contact with Stephen despite his father's ongoing advances towards Susan.
Yeah, why wouldn't you just cut off communication with
She's
your
like,
father?
why are you still talking to your dad that is crazy, abusive, and in love with me? Like, why are you doing that? Susan's friends also pointed to Joshua's extremely controlling behavior towards his wife and to his extravagant spending habits. Joshua filed for bankruptcy in 2007, declaring over $200,000 in debt. Susan recorded a video in July 2008 surveying property damage she attributed to Joshua and wrote a secret will that included the statements, "I want it documented that there is extreme turmoil in our marriage, and if I die, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one."
Oh my gosh.
So
girly,
she has like
thought maybe she could
she's
die.
like scared. Yeah.
But I'm like, why don't you just get in the car and leave?
Just leave. Just take
leave.
the kids alive. Just take them. Just take little Charles and Brayden and get out of there.
Oh, I didn't even know she had kids with him.
Yeah, they had two sons.
I missed that.
Charles born in 2005.
Oh, shit.
And Brayden in 2007.
No, that's when you... Yeah,
Yes.
That's when you run.
Yeah, it's scary. Okay, her disappearance. On the morning of December 6th, 2009, Susan, Charles, and Brayden attended church services. A neighbor visited them at home in the afternoon, leaving at about 5 p.m. This was the last time Susan Powell was seen by someone from outside the Powell household. At first, relatives reported the entire Powell family missing on December 7th. So that was like the next day, a Monday, after that neighbor came and visited them. Joshua's mother, Terica, and his sister, Jennifer Graves, went looking for them at their house shortly after being informed that the children had not been dropped off at daycare that morning. They called the police after failing to make contact with Joshua or Susan. The police broke into the house, fearing that the family members were victims of carbon monoxide poisoning. They found no one inside, but noticed 2 box fans blowing at a wet spot on the couch. Susan did not show up at her job on December 7th. Her purse, wallet, and identification were all found at the house. Her cell phone was later found in the family's only vehicle, a Chrysler Town & Country minivan that Joshua had been using. So, neighbor sees them the night before, Sunday evening. The next day, the boys aren't dropped off at daycare. Susan doesn't show up at her job. Nobody can get a hold of them. Police break in thinking they might have died of carbon monoxide poisoning in the night. Nobody's there, but 2 box fans are blowing at a wet spot on the couch.
Damn.
Her purse, wallet, identification all left there.
Yeah.
Weird.
Something is amiss.
Yes. Later that day, at about 5 p.m., Joshua returned home with the 2 boys and was taken to the police station for questioning.
Excuse me, sir.
Excuse me? You're like, where have you been?
Where the hell is your wife, huh?
Where's your wife and where have you guys been all day? Cool. He claimed he had left Susan sleeping at home shortly after midnight on December 7th and had taken his boys on a camping trip to Simpson Springs in western Utah. You leave for a camping trip with your 2-year-old and your 4-year-old.
They love camping.
They love camping. We're going to leave in the middle of the night while she's sleeping.
They love the outdoors.
They love the outdoors. My 4-year-old and my 2-year-old, I'm getting them up at midnight. We're leaving for a camping trip at midnight again while my wife's still sleeping. Interesting. Yeah. Police visited Simpson Springs on December 10th, but found no evidence of the campsite that Joshua had described. Probably because it never happened. They also found it suspicious that Joshua would take his young boys out camping in blizzard conditions after midnight.
It's December. What the fuck? Homie.
He's like, we're going camping at midnight in the middle of December with my 2 toddlers.
Like, you didn't even try to come up with a good lie.
Yeah, like...
Gosh.
I mean, he pretty dumb.
Oh my god.
He crazy and he dumb. That is a bad combination. But found no evidence of the campsite that Joshua described. They also found it suspicious that Joshua would take his young boys out camping in blizzard conditions after midnight when they were scheduled to go to daycare just hours later. They're like, we gotta go camping at midnight, but daycare at 7. Like, what is happening? Joshua had additionally not told his boss that he would not be coming into work that day and explained to the police it was because he had thought it was Sunday rather than Monday.
Oh my god.
He's like, I just got the days.
I didn't know it
I thought it was Sunday and I wanted to take my sons camping in a blizzard.
Oh.
At midnight.
Wow, father of the year.
Father of the year, boo.
What a great husband.
Awesome. He's so cool. Upon searching the Powell residence, so here's the investigation. Upon searching the Powell residence on December 9th, investigators found traces of Susan's blood on the floor, life insurance policies on Susan for $1.5 million, and a handwritten letter from Susan expressing fear for her life.
Was that the same thing she wrote earlier?
I think it might be. Maybe that's the secret will that they found. DNA test results released in 2013 matched one blood sample with Susan, while another sample was determined to have come from an unknown male contributor.
Oh, the dad. Maybe. In August 2012, West Valley City Police released documents showing Joshua took actions that were regarded as highly suspicious following Susan's disappearance. Joshua liquidated Susan's retirement accounts, canceled her regularly scheduled chiropractic sessions, and withdrew his children from daycare. He had also previously spoken to coworkers about how to hide a body in an abandoned mine shaft in the western Utah desert. The fuck?
So he's preparing. He's like, I'm gotta get the money from the retirement account. I'm gonna cancel all of her appointments so nobody's gonna be asking why she didn't show up.
Yeah, really inconspicuous, buddy.
Take my boys out of daycare so that we're ready to run at any minute.
I'm just gonna go around town being like, hey, y'all know where to hide a body?
How do you hide a body in a mine shaft?
Jail.
Straight to jail. Straight to jail. Police interviewed the couple's elder son, Charlie, who confirmed that the camping trip Joshua described took place. However, unlike his father, he stated that Susan had gone with them and she did not return. Weeks after her disappearance, a teacher reported Charlie had claimed that his mother was dead. Furthermore, Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy Cox, claimed that while at daycare several months after the disappearance, Braden drew a picture of a van with 3 people in it and told the daycare people, Mommy was in the trunk. Investigators informed the media that they planned to question Joshua again and subpoenaed all footage and interviews, aired and unaired, of Joshua from local television stations. On December 14th, Joshua retained an attorney in connection with the investigation, and police said that he grew increasingly uncooperative. A few days later, he took his sons to Puyallup, where he's from, to stay with Stephen for the abusive grandpa. Come on, kids, we're gonna stay with your crazy grandpa.
Just gonna be fucked up for the rest of their lives.
Seriously. Puyallup to stay with Stephen for the holidays. By December 24th, Joshua was considered a person of interest in the investigation. On January 6, 2010, so about a month later, he returned with his brother Michael to pack the family's belongings, indicating he was moving permanently to Puyallup, Washington. Developments in 2010 to 2012. In Puyallup, Joshua occupied a home with his 2 sons, his father Stephen, his brothers Michael and Jonathan, and his sister Alina. Joshua indicated that he would rent out his house in Utah. It was reported that he had returned to Puyallup after he had lost his job. Soon afterwards, the website SusanPowell.org was launched, described as the official website of Susan Powell. The site's anonymous entries defended Joshua as the victim of a smear campaign by Susan's family, his estranged sister Jennifer, and the LDS Church. Additional posts also speculated that Susan's disappearance was connected to that of Stephen Kosher, a former journalist who vanished the same week as Susan, and that the two had run off to Brazil together. Like, they have no connection. Like, what?
Also, like, the evidence is so, like, obvious. It's everything points to it being if your own kids are saying, oh yeah, my mommy was in the trunk.
Yeah. Like, Joshua and Stephen, so Josh and his dad, were widely believed to have written these posts. They literally create a website and like write posts to try and like clear their names. In late 2010, both men claimed that Susan had abandoned her family due to mental illness and that she had left with another man. Susan's family rejected these claims as being unsupported by any evidence. Yeah, they're literally grasping at straws. They're trying to do anything they can.
If she ran away, she would have brought her kids.
1000%. And he wouldn't have claimed like, oh, I left her sleeping. If he knew that she had left with another man, why didn't he say that in the first place?
It's like your story isn't adding up.
You're like, now you're changing your story? Interesting. Like, did you forget again? Like, what? Investigator scrutiny extended to Stephen upon learning from a family friend that he had been obsessed with his son's wife. Computer images seized from his house in 2010 turned up 4,500 images of Susan taken without her knowledge, including close-ups of specific body parts. Police also turned their attention to Michael, so Joshua's brother, after learning that he had sold his broken-down Ford Taurus to a wrecking yard in Pendleton, Oregon, shortly after Susan's disappearance, and had later ordered satellite images of the lot. When police found the car, a sniffer dog indicated that decomposing human remains had been in the trunk. Mommy's in the trunk.
Dude,
DNA tests.
arrest him.
Literally. DNA tests on the car proved inconclusive. On September 14th, 2011, Utah authorities discovered a possible gravesite while searching Topaz Mountain, a desert near Nephi.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, that Joshua had frequented as a campsite. There were signs of recent soil disturbance and shoveling, but after digging a few feet down, police were unable to find any remains. In spite of careful sifting of the soil, federal anthropologists also ruled out the possibility of the site being an ancient burial ground. Police continued to examine the site for a time, but offered no explanation as to why they previously announced the finding of remains when none had actually been confirmed.
But didn't they find her, like, traces of her DNA in the trunk?
Yeah, but this was at that desert area campsite. Authorities said they were following a scent detected by their sniffer dogs.
Or are they looking for her body? Is that it?
Yes.
Oh.
There's like a lot of updates, but essentially they hadn't found her. Continuing on, in late 2011, Joshua underwent a series of court-ordered evaluations in Washington for his parenting skills. He gets his kids taken from him, but like is allowed basically like supervised visits with social workers because they just start finding all this stuff out about Josh, that like he's kind of crazy. He's got like child pornography on computers and all of this stuff. So, okay. On February 5th, 2012, social worker Elizabeth Griffin Hall called 911 after taking Charlie and Braden to a supervised visit at Joshua's house in South Hill. Hall, who was supposed to monitor the visit between Joshua and the boys, reported that he grabbed them and would not let her through the door. Soon thereafter, the house exploded, killing Joshua and the two children. Local authorities treated the case as a double murder-suicide, saying that the act appeared to have been deliberate. When authorities notified Stephen, Joshua's dad, who was in jail, and they took Stephen because he had like
he literally had like
pornography
stuff on
and stuff on his like computer and all this like child pornography and all that
and
stuff.
maybe it's like they know that it's Joshua, but then maybe they can't find anything to prove it. Oh, but although if you found blood in their house,
Yes.
that's a little bit, I'm like, why aren't you,
Yes.
isn't that enough? Like to
Yes.
like to put him away for a few months, or like, I don't know. It seems a little bit like, oh, I don't know what happened.
Yes.
It's like, come
I
on.
know. It's weird. Continuing. So when authorities notified Stephen that his son and his two grandchildren that they had died, he didn't seem very upset by the news, but was angry towards authorities who notified him. 2 weeks later, Stephen invoked his Fifth Amendment right to not answer questions regarding Susan's disappearance. Cox and others have stated to believe that Stephen knew what actually had happened to Susan. So Cox is like Susan's parents, her family. Stephen was convicted of voyeurism charges in May 2012 in a trial which largely skirted the issue of Susan's case. After a relatively brief investigation, officials confirmed that the explosion had been deliberately planned. The official cause of death for Joshua and the two boys was determined to be carbon monoxide poisoning. Though the coroner also noted that both children had significant chopping injuries on the head and neck. A hatchet was recovered near Joshua's body, and investigators believed he used the tool to attack the boys before being overwhelmed by smoke and fumes. The fire investigation also found 2 5-gallon cans of gasoline on the premises, as well as evidence that gasoline had been spread throughout the house. Friends and relatives of Joshua told authorities that he had contacted them by email minutes before the incident to say goodbye. Some of them, including his local bishop, received instructions for finding his money and shutting off his utilities. Records also showed that Joshua had withdrawn $7,000 from his bank account and had donated his children's toys and books to local charities the day before the incident. Wow, what a man.
It's literally calculated. All of this was like premeditated.
Yep. Joshua named his brother Michael as the main beneficiary. Michael, who they found like human like DNA stuff in the back of his car. Joshua named his brother Michael as the main beneficiary of his life insurance policy. Charles and Braden are buried at Woodbine Cemetery, which also contains a memorial for their mother. Josh's remains were cremated.
Was like the Suzanne's body ever found? See, the thing is that gets me about these types of stories is I'm like, there's so many warning signs. And I just feel like no one ever does anything until it's too late. And like, this is a real family, and so it's like I don't ever want to like act like I know how all this like forensics works and stuff like that. But also I'm like,
but you're like, so much.
like, not even the family, like Suzanne's parents didn't try to step in and try to like help
Why?
the kids. Like, no one did anything. Or Suzanne herself, I mean, obviously,
like,
I don't blame her.
like,
because,
why wasn't, I just don't understand why they couldn't take Josh into jail earlier, like why he wasn't like taken into custody, because
yeah,
I'm like,
that's
there's
too many damning
too
evidence.
many things.
Bring in
He's
witnesses who said he said this.
like
Yeah.
he's
Take
being
him in for
weird, he's
questioning.
changing his story, all this
They
stuff.
literally found her blood
They
in
literally
his house.
found blood in his house, her
That's
blood in
not
his house.
evidence.
They found DNA in the back of his brother's
Right.
car.
And then you have her two little
Her
boys
two little boys
saying
saying, "Mommy was in the trunk. Mom went with
kids
us."
don't say things like that.
Like, yeah, we did go camping. Mom was with us, and then she didn't come back with us. What do you mean? Like,
yeah, that just seems like a really shitty job on the cops' parts and like
it's
whoever was
really
on the case.
freaking weird. Just a couple more things. So Stephen Powell was released from prison on July 11th, 2017, after serving a total of 7 years following his voyeurism and child pornography convictions. He died of natural causes in Tacoma, Washington, in 2018. So crazy gross grandpa is dead. Again, if you guys want to know more about the Susan Powell story, I actually now want to go listen to the Cold podcast.
It just makes me
They did like, I mean,
frustrated.
like they did a full thing on it, and I've heard it's amazing actually. So definitely go listen to them. Susan remains a missing person, but given the fates of her sons, it is widely believed that she was murdered by Joshua.
And of course, like,
Yeah, like how could you not?
How?
Like honestly,
Yeah.
it's pretty like it's
jeez.
the proof's like in the pudding, honestly, and it's like.
Because I get not like being able to arrest someone based on hearsay and what
Yeah.
strangers are. Like, you have to have actual, evidence. But so that's why I'm like, well, you found blood.
I don't know.
found DNA,
I'm like,
but I don't
it just
know.
really like, why didn't you like dig deeper into more of these things?
Yeah.
Like that, it kind of feels like maybe some of the things were just kind of passed over.
Or
you're
yeah,
like,
maybe some of these things didn't come out till after. Who knows?
yeah, like it was just.
But
it's
yeah,
just
that
interesting.
That just makes me mad because I'm like, you look at a situation like that, you're like, all of them could have been saved.
Yeah.
Well, no one like had to die. You
the
know.
fact too that like the state did like what they should do and take the boys from him, and he's getting supervised visits, and he
Right.
snatches them right out of like the social worker and like pulls them inside and like
Literally.
won't let her in, and she's like, what can she do? And then he kills himself and his sons.
Jeez.
Like
Yeah.
insane.
That's like just horrible.
Such a crazy story. I have heard of Susan Powell. Like I've heard that name.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of the Cold podcast, but I didn't know like anything about the story.
Yeah. I
So
didn't know any
that was
thing
actually
about
very
that.
interesting for me to read. But man, now I want to go listen to the Cold
Yeah.
podcast for sure.
I have one more, and I'm thinking maybe this should just be kind of a long like special episode because I really like this.
Yeah, read this last one, and then
and we
we'll
can end
we'll
off.
call it a day. Yeah.
Because I'm like, I listened to a almost 4 hour Joe Rogan
No,
podcast
this kind of stuff
episode.
is so interesting
Yeah.
to me. So
People can tune out if they want. I'm not going to feel bad about
yeah, go
going
for
over.
it.
No one can make
Go
me feel
for it.
bad. Anyway.
It could make me feel bad either.
Anyway, hey, this one is also from Wikipedia, and it is called The Sauter Children Disappearance. So, brief overview first, and then I'll get into the background, kind of like we've been doing. So, on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1945, a fire destroyed the Sauter residence in Fayetteville, West Virginia, United States. At the time, it was occupied by George Sauter, his wife Jenny, and 9 of their 10 children. Damn, they be having tons of children. During the fire, George, Jenny, and 4 of the 9 children escaped. The bodies of the other 5 children have never been found. The surviving
What?
Sauter family believed for the rest of their lives that the 5 missing children survived.
That's like this the overview. really quick.
Overview, but
Okay.
now we're getting into it.
Okay.
The Sauter family celebrated on Christmas Eve 1945. Marion, age 19, the oldest daughter, had been working at a dime store in downtown Fayetteville, and she surprised 3 of her younger sisters, Martha, 12, Jenny, age 8, and Betty, 5, with new toys she had bought them for them as gifts. So Marion brought her 3 sisters gifts for Christmas. The younger children were so excited that they asked their mother if they could stay up past what would have been their usual bedtime to play with their toys.
Aww.
At 10 p.m., Jenny told them they could stay up a little later, as long as the 2 oldest boys who were still awake, 14-year-old Maurice and his 9-year-old brother Louis, remembered to put the cows in and feed the chickens before going to bed themselves. George, the husband, and the 2 oldest boys, John 22 and George Jr., age 16, who had spent the day working with their father, were already asleep. So the dad and the oldest 2 boys were asleep.
Okay.
After reminding the children of those remaining chores, she took Sylvia upstairs with her and they went to bed together. So mom took baby Sylvia, age 2. Not baby, toddler, but
yeah,
you get it.
The
And
baby.
They went to bed.
Yeah.
The telephone rang at 12:30 a.m. Jenny woke and went downstairs to answer it. The caller was a woman whose voice she did not recognize, asking for a name she was not familiar with the sound of laughter and clinking glasses in the background. Jenny told the caller she had reached a wrong number, later recalling the woman's weird laugh. Then she hung up and returned to bed. As she did, she noticed that the lights were still on and the curtains were not drawn, 2 things the children normally attended to when they stayed up later than their parents. Marion had fallen asleep on the living room couch, so Jenny assumed the other children who had stayed up later had gone back up to the attic where they slept. She closed the curtains, turned out the lights, and returned to bed. At 1 a.m., Jenny was again awakened by the sound of an object hitting the house's roof with a loud bang, then a rolling noise. After hearing nothing further, she went back to sleep. After another half hour, she woke up again, smelling smoke. When she got up again, she found that the room George used for his office was on fire, around the telephone line and fuse box. Jenny woke him, and he in turn woke his older sons. Both parents and 4 of their children, Marion, Sylvia, John, and George Jr., escaped the house.
Okay, so the 3 oldest kids and then the baby.
Basically.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
They frantically yelled to the children upstairs, but heard no response. They could not go up there as the stairway itself was already aflame. Things like this make me realize how fast fire truly spreads.
It's so quick.
I always think, I'm like, oh, everyone has time to like get out. I'm like, oh no, it goes so fast.
No, yeah.
Efforts to find aid and rescue the children were unexpectedly complicated. The phone did not work, so Marion ran to a neighbor's house to call the Fayetteville Fire Department. A driver on the nearby road had also seen the flames and called from a nearby tavern. They too were unsuccessful either because they could not reach the operator or because the phone turned out to be broken. Either the neighbor or the passing motorist was eventually successful in reaching the fire department from another phone in the center of town. George, barefoot, attempted to climb the house's outside wall and break open a window. But he cut his arm in the process. He and his sons intended to use a ladder to the attic to rescue the other children, but it was not in its usual spot resting against the house and could not be found anywhere nearby.
What?
A water barrel that could have been used to extinguish the fire was frozen solid. George then tried to pull both of the trucks he used in his business up to the house and use them to climb the attic window, but neither of them would start despite having worked perfectly during the previous day.
What?
So all of these things are just randomly not working. Frustrated, the 6 Sodders who had escaped had no choice but to watch the house burn down and collapse over the next 45 minutes. They assumed the other 5 children had perished in the blaze. The fire department, low on manpower due to the war and relying on individual firefighters to call each other, did not respond until later that morning.
Oh my gosh.
Chief F.J. Morris said the next day that the already slow response was further hampered by his inability to drive the fire truck, requiring that he wait until someone who could drive was available. The firefighters, one of whom was a brother of Jenny's, could do little but look through the ashes that were left in the Sodders' basement.
Oh, so like an uncle to the
Yeah.
kid. Okay.
By 10 a.m., Morris told the Sodders that they had not found any bones, as might have been expected if the other children had been in the house as it burned. According to another account, they did find a few bone fragments and internal organs, but chose not to tell the family. It has also been noted by modern fire professionals that their search was cursory at best. Nevertheless, Morris believed that the 5 children unaccounted for had died in the fire, suggesting it had been hot enough to burn their bodies completely. But still weird that, like, you wouldn't find any bones or, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and, like, a fire has to burn pretty hot for
Right.
the entire body to be
yeah.
burned. Mm-hmm. Like, And no trace, no bones. Like, that's not just like a regular house fire. Like,
Yeah.
they would have found bones.
This, and then underneath aftermath, it says Morris, the chief investigator, or I guess maybe the chief of the fire department, sorry. He told George to leave the site undisturbed so that the state fire marshal's office could conduct a more thorough investigation. However, after 4 days, George and his wife could not bear the site anymore, so he bulldozed 5 feet of dirt over the site with the intention of covering it to a memorial garden for the lost children. The local coroner convened an inquest the next day, which held that the fire was an accident caused by faulty wiring. Among the jurors was the man who had threatened George that his house would be burned down and his children destroyed, in quotations, in retribution for his anti-Mussolini remarks.
What?
Death certificates for the 5 children were issued December 30th. George and Jenny were too grief-stricken to attend the funeral on January 2nd, 1946, although their surviving children did attend the funeral. So now I want to get into some interesting background about George and maybe who the suspects could have been, because all of this is just like, what the hell right now?
Yeah, you're like,
but then
okay, where were all the things? Why weren't the cars starting?
Yes.
Like, that makes it sound like maybe somebody started it, somebody who was a member of the family or knew all these different things. Like, okay, we gotta like get rid of the ladder.
we got to make sure the trucks, we got to tamper with the trucks.
Got to tamper with the truck so nobody can drive to get somebody, or
And then in the
like,
phone line, we're going to tamper with that
we're gonna
too.
tamper with phone line. Yeah. Make sure that, like, you know, it's foolproof, basically.
But I want to read this because this was interesting.
Okay.
So George Sauter, the husband, was born with the name, I don't want to butcher this, Giorgio Sadu, in Tula, Sardinia, Italy, in 1895.
Oh, okay. So he's Italian.
He immigrated to the United States 13 years later with an older brother who went back home as soon as both boys had cleared customs at Ellis Island. For the rest of his life, George, as he came to be known, would not talk much about why he had left his homeland. Sauter eventually found work on the railroads in Pennsylvania, carrying water and other supplies to workers. After a few years, he took more permanent work as a driver in West Virginia. He then started his own trucking company, initially hauling fill dirt to construction sites and later hauling coal mined in the region. Jenny Cipriani, a storekeeper's daughter in Smithers who had also emigrated from Italy in her childhood, became George's wife. So both of them are Italian.
Okay.
The Sauters settled outside nearby Fayetteville, which had a large population of Italian immigrants, in a 2-story timber frame house 2 miles north of town. In 1923, they had their first of 10 children. George's business prospered, and they became one of the most respected middle-class families around, in the words of one local official. However, George had strong opinions about many subjects and was not shy about expressing them, sometimes alienating people. In particular, his strident opposition to Italian dictator Benito Mussolini had led to some strong arguments with other members of the immigrant community.
Huh.
So it might have been someone who just really did not
Who
like,
was like,
and it's during
all
war
for-
times.
Yeah, all
and,
for communism.
yeah,
like
it could have been someone who sabotaged him, like an acquaintance.
like Nazi sympathizer type shiz. Yeah.
And we know what people like that are capable of. So the last of the Sauter children, Sylvia, was born in 1942. By then, their second oldest son, Joe, age 21, had left home to serve in the military during World War II. The following year, Mussolini was deposed and executed. However, George's criticism of the late dictator had left some hard feelings. In October 1945, a visiting life insurance salesman, after being rebuffed, warned George that his house would go up in smoke and your children are going to be destroyed, attributing this all to the dirty remarks you have been making about Mussolini. Another visitor to the house, ostensibly seeking work, took the occasion to go around to the back and warn George that a pair of fuse boxes would cause a fire someday. George was puzzled by the observation, since he had just had the house rewired when an electric stove was installed. So there's some faulty stuff going around here.
Weird.
And the local electric company had said afterwards it was safe. In the weeks before Christmas that year, George's older sons had also noticed a strange car parked along the main highway through town, its occupants watching the younger Sauter children as they returned from school. So just like weird.
That's fishy.
Yeah, like maybe like a group of like communists or like maybe like mob members too, like put a hit out on them because they didn't like what they were saying.
That like traveling salesman that was like basically threatened him.
Yeah.
Like basically put like a hit out.
Yeah, the fact is like if someone literally comes up to you with threat, be like, your children are gonna be destroyed because of the remarks you've been making about.
And then you have somebody else saying like, there's gonna be a fire.
Right.
It's like,
well, the thing is like, especially because like people were dirt poor back then, they were probably also targeted because like if they're a pretty wealthy
like,
middle class family, that also might be
literally living the American dream.
Yeah.
Like that, like
right.
Built like a business from the ground up, successful, beautiful family. You know.
Not long afterward, as they began to rebuild their lives, the Sauter family started to question all the official findings about the fire. They wondered why, if it had been caused by an electrical problem, the family's Christmas lights had remained on throughout the fire's early stages.
That's
Why? When the power should have gone out. Then they found that the ladder had been missing from the side of the house on the night of the fire at the bottom of an embankment 75 feet away.
Okay.
Someone literally chucked their ladder.
Somebody literally took the ladder. Like, the wind carried it
75 feet away.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Telephone repairmen told the Sauters that the house's phone line had not been burned through in the fire, as they had initially thought, but cut by someone who had been willing and able to climb 14 feet up the pole and reach 2 feet away from it to do so. A man whom neighbors had seen stealing a block and tackle from the property around the time of the fire was identified and arrested. He admitted to the theft and claimed he had been the one who cut the phone line, thinking it was a power line, but denied having anything to do with the fire.
Why would you cut the power line though,
Yeah, why would you do that?
I thought it was a power line, so I was like, are you...
Right next to their house.
Do you work for the city? You came out...
These, like, excuses are so stupid.
Why would you cut... Okay, even if you didn't realize it was a phone line, why did you cut the power line?
Right.
Well, I don't know.
However, no record identifying the suspect exists, and why he would have wanted to cut any utility lines to the Sauter house while stealing the block and tackle has never been explained. Jenny also had trouble accepting Morris's belief that all the traces of the children's body had been burned completely in the fire.
Yeah, because why would you?
Why? Like you're like, nothing is adding up about this case in any other aspect. Why would...
Yeah, what?
Many of the household appliances had been found still recognizable in the ash, along with fragments of the tin roof. So why wouldn't there be remains?
Exactly.
She contrasted the results of the fire with a newspaper account of a similar house fire that she read around the same time that killed a family of 7. Skeletal remains of all the victims were reported to have been found in that case.
Yeah.
Jenny burned small piles of animal bones to see if they would be completely consumed. None ever were.
Homegirl literally conducting experiments
right, to
like prove. Like she's like, there's no freaking way. There is no freaking way. Where are my kids' bodies?
For real.
Like, why hasn't there? And I'm just taking the word of somebody who said they're not there.
Basically.
What do you mean they're not there? What do you mean?
It was not hot enough to burn.
No, if it wasn't hot enough to burn the tin roof, and it wasn't hot enough to burn like some of these appliances, like there's no way.
No way.
There's no way.
And then finally, the Sauter's truck's failure to start was also considered. George believed they had been tampered with, perhaps by the same man who stole the block and tackle and cut the phone line. However...
Same person who chucked the ladder into the embankment.
Right. However, one of George's son-in-law told the Charleston Gazette-Mail in 2013 that he had come to believe that Sauter and his sons might have, in their haste to start the trucks, flooded the engines. But... if it worked previously,
no, and like both trucks,
both of them, that's
both
oddly
trucks. I'm like, how many times have we all started? I mean, I know it was back in the 40s and 50s where like the mechanics aren't the same, but I'm like, how many of them? Both trucks, and like how many people probably started their vehicles in a hurry on one occasion or another, and it was totally fine.
Right. Some accounts have suggested the wrong number phone call to the Sauter house might have also somehow been connected to the fire. However, investigators later located the woman who had made the call. She confirmed it had been a wrong number on her part.
Yeah, that didn't seem fishy
connected.
To me. That
was
just was like
weird.
a weird thing. Yeah, that just seemed like she was maybe having a party and was a little drunk and called the wrong number.
Right.
Yeah.
So subsequent developments, evidence soon emerged indicating that the fire had not had not started in the electrical fault and was instead set deliberately. Oh, wow. Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
Okay, what was the thing? She heard something hit the roof. Mm-hmm. The huge
She kept
clunk on the
waking
roof
up,
and
like,
a
every
roll.
30
So you're
minutes.
like, what was that? Maybe like
Someone climbing on top
a
of
grenade of some type.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's kind of what I thought was like a. I mean, it would have been, you would have heard like a bomb go off, but like something like that where you like pull the pin and throw
or maybe
it.
she heard someone moving the ladder. Someone had climbed onto the roof using the ladder and then climbed down and taken the
so
ladder.
somebody
Someone's
climbed on the roof to start the fire.
Yeah, like if the electrical
knowing
thing
that
was
the kids were in the attic, so they want to start the fire up top.
Maybe.
And maybe they dropped something. Yeah, like it could have been a couple of things.
Oh yeah, it says right here. So after it says, you know, it was instead said deliberately. The driver of a bus that passed through Fayetteville late Christmas Eve said he had seen some people throwing balls of fire at the house, like you said. A few months later, when the snow had melted, Sylvia found a small, hard, dark green, rubber ball-like object in the brush nearby. George, recalling his wife's account of a loud thump on the roof before the fire, said it looked like a pineapple bomb, a hand grenade, or some other incendiary device. I know, you are smart. I didn't even think of that. The family later claimed that, contrary to the fire marshal's conclusion, the fire had started on the roof, although by then there was no way to prove it. So we were kind of both right. Like maybe someone climbed up there. That's what she heard.
Somebody for sure.
Yeah.
Somebody for sure chucked a grenade, an incendiary, an incendiary
I
device
think the
up
weirdest
there.
part of
That's
this,
what she heard, the hit and then the roll.
Right. And I think the weirdest part of this is like what makes this a weird thing is like the children. So other witnesses claim to have seen the missing Sauter children themselves. One woman who had been watching the fire from the road said she had seen some of them peering out of a passing car while the house was burning. Another woman at a rest stop between Fayetteville and Charleston said she had served them breakfast the next morning and noted the presence of a car with a Florida license plate in the rest stop's parking lot as well.
What?
The Sauters hired a private investigator named Cece. They're like, okay, we're done with this, Marshall. Like, you're like not doing your job.
Yeah, you're not doing jack crap.
Tinsley named Cece Tinsley, the private investigator, from a nearby town of Golly Bridge to look into the case. Tinsley informed the family that the insurance salesman who had threatened George over his anti-Mussolini sentiments had been on the coroner's jury that ruled the fire an accident. He literally could vote that it was an accident. He was on the jury. Okay, buddy.
The math is mathing.
It's mathing, y'all.
It's mathing.
This ain't like an accident. We know that. He also learned of rumors around Fayetteville that despite his report to the Sauters that no remains had been found in the ashes, Morris had found a heart which he later packed into a metal box and secretly buried. So maybe Morris, who's like the chief, is also in on it.
Oh,
he's like, because he's not
doing his job,
right?
And why wouldn't he be doing his job?
Right. Morris had apparently confessed this to a local minister, who in turn confirmed it to George. George and Tinsley went to Morris and confronted him with this news. Morris agreed to show the two where he had buried the metal box, and they dug it up. They took what they found inside the box to a local funeral director, who, after examining it, told them it was in reality fresh beef liver that had never been exposed to fire. Yeah, what the hell is going on?
Why are you burying a little cow heart?
Yeah. Or beef liver.
Beef liver.
And saying it's a heart. Okay, what? Later, more rumors circulated around Fayetteville that Morris had afterwards admitted the box with the liver had indeed not come from the fire originally. Okay, then why did you say it?
What?
What are you doing, Morris?
He's
like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I buried a heart in a box. Actually, no, it was just the beef. Like, what?
Like, that's
Hello?
So stupid. I'm so confused.
Me too. He had supposedly placed it there in the hope that the Sauters would find it and be satisfied that the missing children had indeed died in the fire. So in some twisted way, he was like, that just makes no sense.
You know what this is sounding like? This is a really long connection. But you know, in New Girl, when Winston pulls pranks and they're either too small or too big.
Oh yeah.
Like they're too small that it doesn't make sense.
It's giving the feather in the shoe.
It's giving the feather in the shoe. Where he's like, hey guys. Like he's talking to all the guys that have made like that either abducted these children, set the fire, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. He's like, guys, I know what's gonna throw them off the tracks.
Okay, what?
I'm gonna bury a beef liver in a box and hope that they maybe find it and then think that like
it's a heart.
It's a heart of one of their children.
Okay.
Yeah. They're like, he goes, but then like when they don't find him, he's like, I'm just gonna show him.
And I'm just gonna say, oh well, I wanted you to find some remains of your children, because that would be sad if you like didn't find any.
Yeah,
remains.
that'd be really sad. Like I kind of feel bad for you, but
So
like,
I'm gonna like, what is
They're
this
like-
logic?
they're like,
You're like, buddy, we don't need to do that.
like,
Like, this is why, like,
yeah.
we've hidden the ladder. This is why we've thrown the hand grenade. Like, you don't need. He's
they're
like, oh, I just
they're
like,
don't worry about it. Like you're not the brains of this operation.
just don't investigate it. That's all you have to do. Like, we don't need you to buy a beef liver.
And then he's like, okay, got it.
Okay,
So don't
okay.
investigate, but also buy the beef liver.
No.
And they're like, no, don't do
no,
that.
Morris, you can just like not pursue the case, okay?
Okay. But like also
No.
like that is what it's giving. It's giving Winston. It's giving Winston feather in the shoe. Like something that makes no sense and nobody would ever make the connection to.
That's so funny.
Except for Morris.
Right. Okay, this is 1940.
This is not funny because it's such a sad
I
story,
know.
but that's actually hilarious.
This is 4 years later, so it says 1949 excavation. On one occasion, George saw a magazine photo of a group of young ballet dancers in New York City, one of whom looked like his missing daughter, Betty. He drove all the way to the girls' school, where his repeated demands to see the girl himself were refused. George
that
also,
poor dad.
I know. Well, and the thing is
That
like,
makes
why
me
are
wanna
all his
cry.
kids, all the 5 missing kids, why are they being seen by witnesses around?
Yeah, and you'd also think that like if they were allowed to go out in public, that they would say something to somebody, be
Right.
like, "This is what," like they try to get out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, what?
That's interesting.
In August 1949, George was able to persuade Oscar Hunter, a Washington, D.C. pathologist, to supervise a new search through the dirt at the house site. After a very thorough search, artifacts, including a dictionary that had belonged to the children and some coins, were found. Several small bone fragments were unearthed, determined to have been human vertebrae. The bone fragments were sent to Marshall T. Newman, a specialist to the Smithsonian Institution. They were confirmed to be lumbar vertebrae, all from the same person. Since the transverse recesses are fused, the age of this individual at death should have been 16 or 17 years, Newman's report said. The top limit of age should be about 22, since the centra, which normally fuse at 23, are still unfused. Thus, given this age range, it was not very likely that these bones were from any of the 5 missing children, since the oldest, Maurice, had been 14 at the time. Newman added that the bones showed no sign of exposure to flame. Further, he agreed that it was very strange that those bones were the only ones found, since a wood fire of such short duration should have left full skeletons of all the children behind. The report concluded that the vertebrae had instead most likely come from the dirt that George had used to bulldoze the site. Later, Tinsley supposedly confirmed that the bone fragments had come from a cemetery in nearby Mount Hope, but could not explain why they had been taken from there or how they came to be at the fire site. Someone's planting this,
Yeah, like
you know?
somebody planted that,
Right.
like hoping that like maybe they would take that as
Yeah.
like one of the kids' skeletons.
The Smithsonian returned the bone fragments to George in September 1949, according to its records. Their current location is unknown. With the end of official efforts to resolve the case, the Sauter family did not give up hope. They had flyers printed up with pictures of the children, offering a $5,000 reward for information that would have settled the case for even one of them. In 1952, they put up a billboard at the site of the house and another along U.S. Route 60 near Ansted with the same information. It would in time become a landmark for traffic through Fayetteville on U.S. Route 19,
wow.
today State Route 16. The family's efforts soon brought another reported sighting of the children after the fire. Ida Crutchfield, a woman who ran a Charleston hotel, claimed to have seen the children approximately a week afterwards. I do not remember the exact date, she said in a statement. The children had come in around midnight with 2 men and 2 women, all of whom who appeared to be of Italian extraction. Weird. When she attempted to speak with the children, one of the men looked at me in a hostile manner. He turned around and began talking rapidly in Italian. Immediately, the whole party stopped talking to me. She recalled that they left the hotel early the next morning. Investigators today do not, however, consider her story credible, as she had only first seen photos of the children 2 years after the fire, 5 years before she came forward. So maybe she could have been lying, but weird. George followed up leads in person, traveling to the areas from where tips had come. A woman from St. Louis, Missouri, claimed Martha was being held in a convent there. So a lot of false and maybe some credible tips. None of these prove significant. When George heard later that a relative of Jenny's in Florida had children that looked similar to his, the relative had to prove the children were his own before George was satisfied. In 1967, George went to the Houston area to investigate another tip. A woman there had written to the family saying that Lewis had revealed his true identity to her one night after having too much to drink.
Oh, wow.
She believed that he and Maurice were both living in Texas somewhere. However, George and his son-in-law, Grover Paxton, were unable to speak with her. Police there were able to help them find the two men she had indicated, but they denied being the missing sons. Paxton said years later that doubts about that denial lingered in George's mind for the rest of his life.
Wow.
Another letter that they received that year brought the Sodders what they believed was the most credible evidence that at least Lewis was still alive. One day, Jenny found in the mail a letter addressed to her, postmarked in Central City, Kentucky, with no return address. Inside was a picture of a young man of around 30 with features strongly resembling Lewis's, who would have been in his 30s if he had survived.
Oh.
On the back was written, Lewis Sodder, I love brother Frankie. This is the picture.
Oh, he was handsome.
Weird.
For a second, I'm like,
Basically, this just goes on and on. Sylvia Sodder Paxton, the youngest of the surviving Sodder siblings, died in 2021. Yes, this is the 2-year-old. She was in the house on the night of the fire, which she said was her earliest memory. I was the last one of the kids to leave home, she recalled to the Gazette Mail in 2013. She and her father often stayed up late, talking about what might have happened. I experienced their grief for a long time. She believed that her siblings survived that night and assisted with efforts to find them and publicize the case. Her daughter said in 2006, she promised my grandparents she wouldn't let the story die, that she would do everything she could. In the 21st century, the family's efforts have come to conclude online forums, in addition to medium coverage. Stacey Horn, who did a segment on the case for National Public Radio around its 60th anniversary in 2005, also believes the children's death in the fire is the most plausible solution. I'm like,
I don't think so.
In a contemporaneous post on her blog with material she had to cut from her story for time, she noted that the fire had continued to smolder all night after the house collapsed and that 2 hours was not enough time to search the ash thoroughly. Even if it had been, the firefighters may not have known what to look for. However, she said there is enough genuine weirdness about this whole thing that if someday it is learned that the children did not die in the fire, I won't be shocked. And that is the Sodder children disappearance.
That's wild.
The fact that like there just kept being tips years and years after, and like weird sightings and like bones were never found.
My thing. I don't think they died in the fire. I think they probably were abducted. That lady who worked at like that motel or that inn that said that, I believe that's like, I honestly believe that like they took the kids, like probably Mussolini like sympathizers who like were in on this with this salesman who kind of targeted them, and like took them, and maybe they killed them after.
Maybe. The only thing is like, what would their
I think
motive
they might
be
I don't know
to kill them? But it is weird that like,
but like they would have found their remains in the fire. Like I do not believe that they didn't.
And even if they had died in the fire, why would the fire be ruled an accident? That's the thing. It should have just been ruled, oh yeah, like it was purposeful. I don't even know what you call it.
Like arson.
Arson, yeah. But the fact that like people were like, oh no, it's an accident, despite it like so many evidence pointing at it being deliberately caused. Like I just don't understand why. And the fact that the guy who literally threatened him was on the jury.
Yeah, no.
I agree.
Nah.
I believe that it was a hit on the family.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe
yeah.
About the kids is what makes
the kids
it so
is the
weird.
weirdest part. I think my theory is that they were abducted and killed somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe.
And they didn't die in the fire.
Right. And the fact that like things were planted, like why would the chief bury something there? Why?
Morris.
Like that is not what? Like, because even that could be like tampering with the investigation.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
what?
Maybe their rules were different. It was the 40s.
I don't know.
I don't freaking know. Like forensics have just become so different now.
Different.
And have advanced. You're just like, what the hell?
Weird stuff.
Maybe Morris and the salesman who threatened George, they were in cahoots.
It sounds like a lot of people were in cahoots.
Yeah. And just, people did horrible things.
Yeah.
Because if you kind of
commie sympathizers.
Yeah, much like today, people do rash things if you don't believe, if you don't agree with them. Yeah.
Yep.
Crazy things. So,
all right. That was so good.
That was really
fun
good.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, you guys. Check back in next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.